favorite guest, and he's a friend of mine. He is the real McCoy, a real patriot who loves liberty, and he'll tell you like it is. Jesse Ventura, movie star, star wrestler, best-selling author, former Minnesota governor, also a mayor. His new book is out, and I should add, it's available at Infowars.com. It's excellent for people that are still in the whole left-right paradigm. DemoCRIPS and ReBLOODlicans. And I've got a few news clips we're going to play later where he's on CNN, MSNBC, you name it. And they're like, how dare you, call them gang members in the parties? Or how dare you imply 9/11 could be something than what we were told? We're going to get his take on some of that. Because it's admitted that the West is using al-Qaeda in Libya and Syria to overthrow the governments. I mean, that's even in London Telegraph, LA Times. I showed it to you last hour. If you're a radio listener, I stream video at prisonplanet.tv, but I read the headlines on air. This is so crazy that this is going on. Now, Jesse Ventura has had a big battle with the TSA, as you know, but they won't even give him his day in court. We also want to get an update. We haven't talked to him in 2 weeks about where's the TV show that was finished 4 or 5 months ago. And also, I have confirmed from program directors, and you've heard them here on this show, radio stations we're on and that Eric Mancal Muller's on, because we're on a lot of the same stations for whatever reason, like the Big 810 out in Orlando. They haven't had the problem, though. Other stations have, where when Jesse Ventura's on and talking about the censorship of his episode or FEMA camps, there's a scrambling that happens. Now, we don't know if it's at the satellite, the radio satellite. I'm on a similar one to Mancal, but a different one. Or we don't know if it's the EAS that's wired in at the hub point. By law now, at the radio station transmitter. And I've talked to engineers. They say, yeah, they could send a radio control and scramble it. And now Obama has announced, this is in Reuters, AP yesterday, that they're going to have EAS break in with and take over your cell phone with presidential announcements. And then your phone's going to have a presidential ring. And then it will override whatever call you're on. Same thing with TV, cable, everything. So let's talk about the censorship of the police state episode, what's happening with the new episode. And I know he was on Mancal talking about this. We investigated it and interviewed program directors on air and off air. And let me tell you, it's freaking them out. So, Jesse, that was confirmed. What's your take on that?
Well, first of all, it won't affect me with the cell phone, Alex. I've never owned one, nor will I ever, so I'm going to plead ignorant on that. Unfortunately, I won't hear the president's messages because I don't use a cell phone, so I guess I'll have to get them some other way, or you can tell me about them. But, no, I think it's very dangerous what's going on between that and that they now allow these unmanned drones, these surveillance drones are being okayed to fly throughout our country. I hate to say it, but our Bill of Rights, as I state in my book, is in shambles. I mean, we've got government that just ignores it. They don't care. We don't have habeas corpus anymore. That's been suspended since George Bush started his folly in the wars. Obama's never reinstated it, so you don't even have a right to a lawyer anymore in this country. And I don't know when people here are going to wake up and realize that the Democrats and Republicans don't have your best interest in mind.
Well, I agree with you. Let me give you the headline because the guys were able to actually pull it up so you can read it. And it has a link to the White House announcement. And so radio listeners can also find it. The headline up at Infowars.com from that article states, and we'll throw that back up on screen here real quick. DHS cell phone alert system follows you around. Presidential message to have their own distinctive ringtone. And we have links to the White House announcement and the Department of Homeland Security statement. And get this, Governor, Walmarts are phasing in telescreens with big sis on them telling you to look out for terrorists.
Well, I guess they're going to inform us well, Alex. Isn't that a wonderful public service they're doing for all of us?
Weren't you in a movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger where they have billboards saying, watch your neighbors? This is called The Running Man?
Yeah. The Running Man is becoming quite prophetic. We don't quite have a game show like it because, it was based on a game show. And actually, The Running Man, for many people that don't realize it, it was written by a gentleman named Richard Bachman. Well, that was a pseudonym for Stephen King. Stephen King wrote a group of short stories, The Running Man included, under that name. But it originated from Stephen King, so if anybody would know about bizarre things and have a bizarre imagination, it would be Stephen King. But he's like a prophet, because a lot of the things that he writes about, and him and George Orwell, are now coming true today. And you know, again, we haven't quite got to the point where we have the Running Man game show, but we're to the point where reality TV is getting pretty darn close to it.
Well, we have all the gun camera footage of people being killed in Iraq and places, and then the video games simulate killing. So I think in a way they've turned war into a game show. I've talked to business owners.
Oh, there's no doubt about it, Alex. You know, I feel for kids today, because kids that play these games and all these things that you see advertised on TV, you know, with the killing and all that stuff, it's going to callous them towards it. They're going to think it's everyday activity and the normal way of life, and I don't think that's necessarily a good idea. One thing that's always amazed me, Alex, is how sex is rated X, but violence is only R.
Oh, yeah, you can have two boxers beat the daylights out of each other, and that's family fun, but you see a woman's breast, it's the end of the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing how really strange we are as a society that sex could be X-rated. That's worse than running around with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and movies like that, you know, show mass murderers and, you know, people being killed, left slasher movies, all that stuff. Those only get an R rating, but sex gets an X rating.
Very, very well said. I totally agree with you on that point. Well, I mean, they admit we're being desensitized to all this. Speaking of censorship, I know that we're not supposed to get into the whole story because some of that's private, but people always ask me about this. Here we are over a year later, and they censored that Homeland Security FEMA special where you blew the camps wide open. Now they're doing urban warfare drills. The Army admits they've got the camps. I know you've been out of pocket, but I can send you that if you'd like.
Sure.
We were sent an Army document a few months ago. The Army came out and said, you shouldn't have that. But yes, we have re-education camps. So much of this is coming out in the open now. And so recap for folks what happened with that episode and now what's happened with the new season.
Well, what happened with that particular episode was, I believe it was, are we turning into a police state? And, of course, we discovered the documents. Congressman Cohn of Tennessee was one of the co-sponsors of it. And we found the documents where Homeland Security ordered FEMA to build no less than 6 detention camps. And, of course, the cover story is it's for disasters like Katrina, so that they will have places. They're located in 6 different locations throughout the country, and that if there's a big disaster that hits, what they tell you is that it'll be good then because we'll have places to put for lack of a better term, refugees from the disasters until they can find, you know, living quarters, other places or whatever. But, you know, how can they be refugee camps when they build them with fences with barbed wire on? I mean, if they're just simply holding you there as a temporary thing due to a disaster, well, then why would they need things of that order? Why you shouldn't be able to come and go as you please? And the thing to always look at for people, the novice way to look at it is always look at the barbed wire on the top of the fence. If the barbed wire faces outward, it's to keep people from the outside getting in. If barbed wire faces inward, it's to keep people from the inside getting out. So that's one easy way when you ever see a barbed wire or a chain link fence with barbed wire on the top, look at the way the barbed wire is facing. If it's facing in, it's to keep prisoners in there. If it's facing out, then it's to keep outsiders from getting in.
Also, if it's coiled on the top, it's a detention center in many cases as well.
Oh, yeah. If it's razor wire, absolutely. I mean, that's a whole different ballgame. That's another cup of tea with that stuff. That razor wire will stop anybody from any direction.
Well, I've talked to program directors who've confirmed here on air that when you go that when you went on Mancow, or that when I go on his show, and now I've confirmed it's happened to my show some, that they scramble it when we give bill numbers and you know, talk about things like Emergency Centers Establishment Act. What do you think's happening there?
Well, Mancow, I've done his show twice now on this book tour, and he's informed me he's outraged. He's going crazy over it. And I appreciate Mancow a little bit because, you know, he was the one who at first didn't believe that waterboarding was torture, but like a good journalist, he had it done to himself. And now he's completely reversed himself. He realizes that it is torture because he had it done to himself. You know, where they administered the waterboarding to him.
And you know it's bad because you've had it done to you.
Yeah, back in SEER school, we all essentially did many years ago. So, and they used to call it Chinese water torture, but they got a way of changing the names. Then it became waterboarding, and now thanks to Dick Cheney, it's called enhanced interrogation. But getting back to the show, that's what we learned. And of course, when we confronted Congressman Cohn with it, he actually read on the congressional floor an outrage statement against me, Michael Braverman, and my television show. So we actually went into the congressional record on it, but on that particular show. But the weird thing about it was it aired one time, and then it was taken off the air, and now True TV won't even acknowledge we did the show. It's out there on YouTube, I would guess. It's still there. You got to search and find it.
They also erased it off the DVRs, Governor.
Okay, well, that's news to me, too. So, you know, obviously they don't want any of this out there for the public consumption or public comment or knowledge on it. And as far as the show goes this year, it's interesting because you were just talking about TSA and all that stuff.
Hold on, Governor. Stay there. Stay there. We've got to go to break. Governor Jesse Ventura is our guest. Get his book and support the First Amendment. They can't erase this off your TiVo. DemoCRIPS and ReBLOODlicans. InfoWarsShop.com. And bookstores everywhere. We have it discounted with the Free Citizen Rule Book, Evil Constitution, at InfoWars. Now, there are hundreds of great products at InfoWarsTeam.com, but I want to point out the three that have helped me lose 37 pounds in just 2 months. Products like Beyond Tangy Tangerine, Pollen Burst, and Rebound. When I started taking the Tangy Tangerine and other products every day, I lost more than 37 pounds in just 2 months. Now that's results. I want to challenge my listeners to go to InfoWarsTeam.com and to order just 3 of their products, and you will see the changes in the way you look, feel, and in your appetite almost immediately. Start your journey to health and wellness today. InfoWarsTeam.com. Governor Jesse Ventura is our guest. Gov, you were getting into the TV show. For folks that just joined us, I was saying, where's the TV show? The third installment. I know it got into the TSA. It was supposed to already air 4 or 5 months ago. Where is it? You said, that's interesting, Alex, and then we went to break. Okay, well, it is interesting because we finish the shows right on time like we normally do in November, and usually the editing takes place immediately, and we're on the air sometime in either mid-January or early February, but here we are approaching July, and the shows have not aired, and of course one of the shows we focused on this year was the TSA. You know, and one of the things we learned is that they're going to come out with these wristbands that will, what they're going to sell to the public is they will have all your information, and, you know, so you'll be banded much like a dog collar, only it'll be around your wrist, and therefore you can stick the wristband in something, and they'll know exactly who you are, which seems on the surface like maybe a good thing. But underneath, what we also learned is they can decapacitate you with these, much like a taser, where if they want to drop you in the airport, if you're wearing one of these, they will have the ability to do that to you. Wow. Yeah, we learned that on the show, that these things also double for a security device, as I said, to where, like, they'll say if you're causing trouble or we suspect you of being, having bad purposes at the airport, that they can just literally drop you like a taser with them if you're wearing them. So that'll be more stuff the lemmings, I'm sure, will love to get, and they'll wear them faithfully. Well, no, I saw Homeland Security a few years ago. They had a meeting and listened to a proposal to make everyone wear security bracelets, and they added, oh, by the way, as an afterthought, they have a taser function in them, and Homeland Security was actually pushing it. So you're saying you were doing an episode researching that? Yeah, that's what's in the episode on the TSA, where we expose that whole thing, that if you do put these, they'll require them at the airports.
And that way, allegedly, you won't have to go through the body searches. You won't have to go through the X-ray machine if it properly identifies you. But on the flip side, it can also be used to drop you down, and to get you under control if they had any need to do that.
Wow.
So I'm glad I'm not flying anymore. I made the choice when they wouldn't allow me to go to court over my Fourth Amendment constitutional rights, saying they didn't have jurisdiction. I just followed what Janet Napolitano said, the head of the Gestapo. That's what I like to call Homeland Security. She said, if you don't like it, don't fly. So I don't like it, so I'm not flying.
Governor, I mean, if it's already this bad today, how much worse is it going to get?
I don't know, Alex. And I said this on another interview. I said, this right now is the first time in my life where I can say this. All the rest of my life, no matter how bad today is in the United States, I always had the feeling that tomorrow would be a better day. This is the first time in my life that if it's bad today, I actually looked at tomorrow could now be worse. We're getting an assault on the middle class that's unbelievable, and people, an assault on unions. Now, granted, unions can be overreach their bounds. They can be, bad because they're run by people. But for the most part, unions are what created the middle class. And if you look at a chart that shows median wage, and if you look at the same chart that shows union falling, the lines are identical. As unions fall, so does median income, and they fall identically. People need to understand it was unions that gave us things like collective bargaining. It gave you things to be able to get health insurance at work. It gave you things against the employers that you wouldn't have as an individual. Case in point, I did the Fran Tarkenton show, and he was wailing pretty hard on the unions. Then I brought up, Fran, remember something. You in the NFL had a union, or still have one. I said, in pro wrestling, we have never had one. That's why at one point in my career, I wrestled 63 consecutive nights in a row without a day off. 63 days in a row. I never had health insurance. This was back in the early 80s. I was paying $5,000 a year to insure my family, my wife, and my kids. Where if we would have had a union, I would have probably only had to pay $1,500 a year because there's strength in numbers. And also, in pro wrestling, where in pro football, pro baseball, all the sports that have unions, they have retirement.
Stay there, Jesse.
In the world of pro wrestling, there is no retirement whatsoever.
Sick of the globalists, eugenicists, control freaks adding poison to your water and laughing as you get sick and die? Start purifying your water with ProPure. My friends, I've done a lot of research, and the best gravity filter out there, bar none, is ProPure. And it's available discounted at Infowars.com. Its filters are silver impregnated to prevent bacterial growth. There's no priming required. It's NSF 42 certified. Optional fluoride filters can reduce fluoride up to 95%. Easy to set up and use. Doesn't require electricity. Purify water from lakes, streams, ponds, and wells. This filter system leaves in beneficial minerals, which is key. Save money by not buying bottled water and avoid BPA that leaches from the plastic. ProPure is the best gravity-fed filter out there. It's what my family uses. Infowars.com already has the lowest price on ProPure. But if you add the promo code WATER at checkout, you get an additional 10% off at Infowars.com. You can also call to order 888-253-3139. Okay, Jesse Ventura is with us another 30 minutes. Always love having him on. We're going to open the phones up here in about 10-15 minutes for a quick comment or question for Governor Ventura. 800-259-9231. 800-259-9231. You got cut off by that break there, Governor, finishing your point about unions. Yeah, you'll see a lot of football players, others who are making $5 million a year. They'll be real, quote, conservative criticizing unions, but they sure like their union. I don't like mainline unions because they're anti-gun, pro-New World Order. They've been taken over as well, but certainly there's no checks and balances to the big mega corporate unions, these cartels that come in and buy off our governments.
Not at all. And going back to wrestling for a moment, The other thing is in pro wrestling, because there's not a union, there's no retirement. So you can wrestle 25 years, and let's face it, wrestlers are not accountants. They're not, specialists to know how to invest and take care of their futures all the time. They're professional wrestlers. And you can put 25 years in the business, and when you're done, you get nothing. Not a thing. Because there's no union protection at all in pro wrestling.
Well, there's not. I've got a lot of questions here that I want to raise, Governor, but what is front and center on your plate right now? What's your greatest concern? What's stuck in your craw?
Well, what I'm most concerned about is our loss of freedom. The Bill of Rights to me has been, and our Constitution is in shambles. The very cloth of our nation that we're supposed to abide by. I mean, in Chapter 2 of my book, I have quotes, remarkable quotes from George Washington, especially the father of our country, talking about how political parties, how awful they are, and Thomas Jefferson and John Adams too. And what troubles me the most is we're now a country that doesn't seem to want to read history. And of course, the old cliche is true. If you don't read history, you're destined to repeat it. And we're heading right down that road because people are more interested in these phony reality shows on TV. They're more interested in sports happening throughout the world. Which, don't get me wrong, that's great entertainment, and you need to entertain yourself. We all work hard, and you owe yourself some entertainment, but you also owe yourself to pay attention. And pay attention to what's going on around you. And what bothers me most is most people have this laissez-faire attitude, well, it isn't going to happen to me. And until it does come up and happen to them, they're not taking any precautions. They're not paying attention to government. And people are not voting. And right now, voting against Democrats and Republicans, to me, has to be the number one order for this fall. I can't emphasize it enough. Stop voting for these two bought-out, bribed political parties. In fact, they used to always say, if you voted for me, Jesse Ventura in Minnesota, you were wasting your vote because I couldn't win. Well, I did win. And we also ought to demand that Governor Gary Johnson, the Libertarian candidate for president, be included in the debates this fall. Why do we only get two leaders of the two gangs who get the debate? Let's bring in a neutral person like Governor Johnson and see what he has to say. And then if you still want to vote Democrat and Republican, well, at least you've been given a third option to consider.
Well, you're right. And even if you don't agree with Johnson on every issue, the point is it's about forcing the two-party monopoly, the two twins, to let in another voice, which is something they desperately don't want. Because Congress...
Alex, let me add something. No one's ever going to agree with the candidate 100%. You're never going to see a candidate for public office where you can honestly say, I agree with everything he says. Take Ron Paul and I. I think Ron Paul would have been the best president without any doubt. And yet we differ on the abortion issue. Ron Paul does not support abortion at all. I do. I don't necessarily support people having abortion, but I don't support government telling women what they can or can't do with their bodies.
Yeah, well, Ron Paul comes out and basically says it's become a state issue, and people are attacking Rand Paul right now because he's saying, hey, don't have mandatory federal labeling for GMO, but he's saying the feds don't have that jurisdiction. It should be a state issue, and that's a complex issue, but I understand why he's saying that.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you, I just got a communication from Rand Paul, and let me tell you this, Alex. I don't know if you're aware of this one. You probably are, because you're usually more aware than I am. But I got a thing from Rand Paul. Are you aware of this treaty in the UN that they're going to try to get us to sign on to?
Which one? They've got an anti...
Well, it's going to happen this fall, and it's one that will have international gun registration.
Oh, yeah, sure. No, there's the treaty that Hillary says they're going to sign without Congress and register and restrict small arms, the Unidad Treaty, yeah. And then there's also the Law of the Sea Treaty that hands over everything to the UN. Yeah, speak to that, Governor. Where do you stand on UN law restricting our guns?
Well, that's absurd. I mean, we have the Second Amendment, which is to protect our right as individuals to have firearms. It's not there. People need to understand. They try to sell you, well, no, we're not going to inflict on your hunting and fishing. This has nothing to do with hunting and fishing. Back when they wrote the Bill of Rights, if you didn't hunt and fish, you didn't eat. So this was done so that the public could arm themselves in case government became oppressive. Well, what's going to happen with this deal is we will now throw our Second Amendment out the window. We will then fall under an international arms law that will tell you, that will require you to register all your guns internationally with some international unit who eventually, is going to disarm you. And, that's the liberal side of the issue. That's their thing. That's like Bill Maher on TV is for that. And I go, well, how ridiculous is that? Because I was in the Philippines the day Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law and became a dictator. The first thing he did as a dictator, he gave the Philippine people 2 weeks to turn in all their guns or it was the death sentence. Now, why would a dictator make that his top priority? It's obvious why. So the public has no way to rise up against him.
That's right, Governor, and I'm very glad that you're here speaking about it. Here's our article, June 16th, Infowars.com. Obama seeks UN and U.S. congressional ratification of UN Global Gun Control Treaty. And then it has links to the UN in our article where they're actually calling for it at the United Nations. UN.org, disarmament /COV arms /arms trade treaty. Registration, restriction, and in the UN treaty, they state civilian ownership of firearms threatens the legitimate power monopoly of the state. So they're admitting they want a power monopoly. What you just said, I say that's illegitimate. And I tell you, if they want to cause a civil war, Governor, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, look at it this way, Alex. I'll give you the best example. I live in Mexico 5 months out of the year. In Mexico, private ownership of guns is illegal. And look what's going on down there. 20 to 30,000 people a year are killed by the drug cartels because the regular people down there have no mechanism to defend themselves. And so all these guns advocates that want to disarm us, take a look at the country of Mexico. As I said, they have big signs when you drive into Mexico. Firearms and even ammunition are illegal. If you're caught with them, you will go immediately to Mexican prison. And look at the end results. It's the old cliche. When the honest people don't have guns, only the bad people do, because they're not getting theirs legally anyway. So they're going to have guns. They don't care one way or the other, the criminals. And that's exactly what would happen up here. The only people then that would have firearms would be criminals.
I'm on the UN treaty website where they say they want the abolition of all of our guns. And it says strengthening peace and security through disarmament, but then only the UN, who, by the way, is invading countless countries as we speak, has the guns. Imagine what Hitler would have done if the rest of the world had been disarmed.
Yeah. Well, a little bit. I mean, we still had our militaries, naturally, that fought him. It wasn't the civilian people necessarily.
But now it's a global government. Now it's a global government.
Yeah, but you're talking about a global government here. How then do we rise up if we don't like the global government? I guess, we can get a bunch of slingshots or something and stand up to them.
Governor Jesse Ventura is with us. His book is already going up the bestseller charts, DemoCRIPS and ReBLOODlicans. Get it out to everybody out there that you know who's not awake to what's happening. A lot of Founding Father quotes, a lot of great insight available at InfoWarsShop.com and bookstores everywhere. But speaking of global government, since we just raised that point, you were on the Kudlow report last week, and I'm not going to play the whole clip because we don't have time. I want to go to calls, but they savaged you for daring to say there's some holes in the official 9/11 story, to say the least. But let's stop there. Here's the same report. I thought there was no global government. I thought the big banks, like in your TV show last year, where you expose, run the global government. I thought that was all made up, Governor. They go on to basically thank the Federal Reserve and say, well, they're just trying to fix things. We'd like a market, but everything's run by them. They're the main recipients of the trillions in bailout. They sold the derivatives. In Europe, 90+% of the debt is theirs, but the media acts like it's the public as they raise taxes, cut benefits, further stalling the economy. Governor, there were literally in the last few weeks more than 30 articles in mainstream news admitting an authoritarian world government's here run by banks, but they know best and thank God they're there. Why do you think they're coming out in the open now?
Well, because eventually the truth will come out, Alex. You know, you can't keep things hidden forever, so they want to get ahead of the 8 ball. They want to put the spin on it so that all the lemmings in the country will be comfortable with it when it actually does come a clear-cut reality out there. That's why they're doing it. It's very intelligent to do it that way. If it's going to happen, they want to be ahead of the curve on it so that they can put their spin on it first, and that way anyone else that opposes it will be fighting an uphill battle.
Exactly, because people only remember the first time they heard it reported and how it was reported. They don't remember later, like the official story of 9/11. We're told, this is the official story, that's it, go back to sleep. But when you actually look closer, it's got more holes in it than Swiss cheese. On the same show, they tried to imply that you were bad and that you were saying, you know, like the Americans did it instead of the globalists. What's your take on that?
Well, again, you know, anyone that questions 9/11 in this country to mainstream media is considered a nutcase. How dare you do it? You're unpatriotic. And, you know, they offer us no information. They accept a 9/11 report that had to be, I learned this, everything in the 9/11 report had to be agreed upon unanimously or it didn't get in the report, you know, and everything of that nature. So it doesn't surprise me a bit, Alex.
Well, the fact is, the system is scared of free thinkers, people that'll tell it like it is. Yourself, myself, Ron Paul, and so many others. But as you've pointed out earlier, the answer is everybody speaking out. Everybody not going along with the cookie-cutter, mainline system.
Well, again, I'll tell you what, you and I talked about organizing a boycott to the airports for one day. I'd like to change that now, and I think we need to organize and we need to protest the fact that the upcoming election will only be between 2 hand-picked people by the gangs. We need to get Gary Johnson in the debates, and I think if we're going to stand up and be counted, there is the spot to do it, because it's right on the horizon. Why should we only get the 2 voices of the 2 bribed-out parties where you're going to get business as usual when you've got a brilliant man like Gary Johnson waiting in the wings who would make an outstanding president
and
of this country?
By the way, I saw clips on the news, too. We've got the clip in there. Was it CNN or MSNBC where they were criticizing you? You were on the show, and they're like, we don't like the fact that you're criticizing, calling them gangs. Do you remember that interview?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They came after me real hard. In fact, the guy tried to lecture me that I need to go out and talk to people to learn what a real gang is, the Crips and the Bloods. And I find that laughable, considering I used to be a full-patch member of the Mongols Motorcycle Club, the Black and White of Southern California. So, Alex, I speak from experience. I've been in a gang, and I've also been in government. These bozos on TV, all they do is go to college and write a book. They have no life experiences. They wouldn't know the inside of a gang if it came up and bit them on the ass.
Well said. Let's jam in some calls in the time we have left with Jesse Ventura. Joe in South Carolina, you're first up. Go ahead.
Hey, Governor Ventura, thanks for taking my call. I'm just curious, if we wind up a Romney or Obama after this, I mean, what is your prediction as to what the future will hold as far as TSA and whatnot? I mean, do you think it's just going to keep going on this way?
Oh, absolutely. It won't matter which guy wins, whether it's Romney or Obama, because they're all going to go with the premise, just like they won't cut the military budget at all. No mainstream candidate will cut the military budget a bit, because none of them want to be portrayed as soft on defense. My God, we have enough nuclear bombs. We have enough military power. Our entire military budget is larger than the whole rest of the world's damn near. I mean, nobody can beat our military. It can't be done right now. Why do we continue to have a military like that? And getting back to your question, it don't matter. If you get Romney or Obama, you're going to get the same policies you've had and the same ones you're going to have.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to come back from break. Only got 5 minutes, 6 minutes left with Jesse Ventura. On the other side, so have your question ready. Christine in Washington, Shannon in Wisconsin, Mike in Mass, Aaron in Canada. We'll try to get to all of you. He's probably got another interview coming up after this, or I'd twist his arm to do 5 more minutes with us. Billy Corrigan is coming up of Smashing Pumpkins. He's a listener of the show, and this is a taped interview I did over the weekend with him. It's pretty bombshell. And so that is coming up as well. But Governor Ventura is our guest. DemoCRIPS and ReBLOODlicans, the new book, available at InfoWarsShop.com or at bookstores everywhere. Jesse Ventura, again, is our guest. Your call straight ahead. All right, Governor Jesse Ventura will be with us 5 minutes into the next hour to take more of your calls. We appreciate him doing that. And then we've got the Billy Corrigan interview coming up. Talks about a lot of hardcore political subjects. This will definitely be a newsmaker, so stay with us for that. We talk about the New World Order, GMO, TSA, the police state, all of it. Christine in Washington, you're on the air with Governor Jesse Ventura.
Jesse,
Hi,
I
Christine.
love and respect you totally. You are the most beautiful being of light. My question, that is how I feel about you. You have more courage than any man I've ever met. Anyway.
Well, I appreciate that, Christine, but I'm sure there's a lot of people out there with more courage than me, too.
Well, I don't know any. But anyway, Jesse, I wanted to know why you were not on Coast to Coast. I was looking forward to that.
The reason was my schedule said they were supposed to call me at 10 o'clock at night. I sat up at 10 o'clock until 11:15 and no call. And so I finally just got tired and went to bed.
Well, that was probably just a time zone issue.
I think somebody screwed up, and either I got the wrong, because according to my schedule, I was supposed to be on from 10 to midnight. I sat and waited from 10 o'clock until 11:15, and my eyes wouldn't stay open.
All right, well,
anymore,
listen, I'm sure it's a time zone issue, so I'm sure that's going to happen. That's an important show to do. If you want to get the word out, it'll be more than all the shows you've been on combined, probably. 16 million listeners a night. Thank you so much, Christine. Aaron in Canada, you're on the air with Jesse Ventura.
Hey, Jesse Ventura, Mr. Jones, how's it going?
Good, go ahead.
Hey, I was just wondering how Jesse Ventura feels about InfoWars and Alex Jones selling pens and canteens from China.
Okay, there's a nice little. We sell a lot of stuff made in America, but we sell things from all over. We sell. I think the inside of the canteen is made in the U.S., but I think the tin is made in China. Yeah.
Well, fine. What about Walmart? Everything they sell comes from China too.
No, it's just a troll call. I mean, that's what people do.
What are you supposed to do? Go out? I mean, I don't look at the label of where everything was made if I want something.
Well, we try our best. Most of what we sell is made in the United States, and I have nothing against the people in China having jobs. I'm against paying $20 billion to ship General Motors to China. That's wrong. So it's just a cowardly attempt to make us look...
And not only that, Alex, when I use fireworks, most of that all comes from China, and I certainly enjoy that on the 4th of July.
Oh, it's all just ridiculous. We're all evil. I just bought some fireworks before this July. I'm bad. Shannon in Wisconsin, you're not calling on a phone made in China, are you?
Probably is. Hey, hi Jesse, hi Alex. Hey, you guys are. I'm honored. You're two of my.
Well, thank you. We're almost out of time.
People.
Do you have a question?
Yes. You had the thing. Say use your listeners for assets. My question is, with the TSA crap that's going on, why can't we have staged, planned events, to get the media hype? Because it's always that people don't react until it hits home. Like the guy getting his grandfather's ashes dumped.
Let me interject. One of the problems with that, just like the Iraq War, there were massive peace protests against the Iraq War, but you're dealing with mainstream media. They ignore them. If we were to go protest, what are the chances that mainstream media would even cover it?
By the way, Governor, this just broke today. I'll ask you when we come back in the next segment about it. They dumped the guy's grandpa's ashes out to basically see what they were and then laughed at him. That's in mainstream television. This shows how crazy the TSA is.
Oh, I agree with that. And let me make one statement here before we go. And this is to all military veterans as well as current military personnel. Remember, you took an oath to defend the Constitution and the Bill of Rights against all enemies, foreign and domestic, especially the current military. Do not go against your own United States citizens.
Yes, sir. We're coming right back. All right, final segment with Governor Jesse Ventura, his new book, DemoCRIPS and ReBLOODlicans. Excellent. No More Gangs in Government. Available at InfoWarsShop.com. Amongst all the other great books and videos we carry. I want to jam in a few final calls for Jesse ahead of the Billy Corrigan interview coming up. Smashing Pumpkins' new album's out, but he gets really political. Jesse, you say the most powerful stuff off air. You were, making the point of, hey, Alex, well, make that point you were making off air to the general audience.
Well, on the military, the thing I wanted to ensure for all military personnel, current, especially current and former, like myself, remember, everyone in the military, you took an oath to defend the Constitution and the Bill of Rights against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I urge current military personnel, do not ever act against a United States citizen. That defies the oath that you took. Always remember your oath. I can't say that enough to our wonderful people that serve our country.
Well said. Very well said. What about your point asking me, hey, are we going to end up in these camps?
Well, I just said off the air, Alex, I hope that you and I end up in the same FEMA camp. At least I'll know I'll have one friend there I can talk to.
Let's hope that doesn't happen, though. It would be cool to hang out with you. It's always an open door down here to come visit with Terry. Let's talk to Mike in Mass. Mike, you're on the air with Jesse Ventura. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's an honor to speak with both of you. I just had I had a question real quick and a word of encouragement. It's really quick. I've been awake for a while, but I haven't had anybody to do anything with, no activism, nothing like that. And I joined Planet InfoWars about a month ago. I met a guy. He's on the same page. He amped me up. I amped him up. Last week we met up with 2 more people. We're already growing exponentially. So as tyranny, as the clampdown comes down, so is the awakening and freedom and liberty. And we're going to beat these guys.
Beautiful.
But my question for Governor Ventura is about gun confiscation. What do we do about, I'm sure a lot of people have the question about how if all these guns are registered, it almost seems like it's futile to even have them. If they're going to probably go after them first, right?
I would think so. I now have, I don't have any guns.
Of course, you're being sarcastic. Yeah.
No, I'm not. I'm just stating for a fact, in case anyone's listening, I've gotten rid of all mine. I don't own any.
That's why you laughed at the end. Yeah, so the answer is you're not turning them in.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I sold them all, right.
You're something else.
Well, you take that the way you want to, Alex. I don't have any guns.
Exactly. Well, don't you think it's going to start a civil war if they try to confiscate guns?
I don't know. And with the way the lemmings are in this country, I'm sure there'd be a civil war with some of us, but not all of us, because you've got a great many people out there that believe we should be disarmed. They've bought into the hype, and they think that government will somehow make them safe, and they'll be safe from everything as long as they don't have a firearm.
Well, in closing, I think we're going to leave it there because there's no time to go to other calls, but look, there are 3 to 4, some months, 5 million guns being sold. It's like more than triple the previous record. It was the double the previous record. And a lot of people I know are saying that's their line in the sand, Governor. Just like in 1776, when they came to confiscate the guns, that's when it started. And I think there are a lot of people out there that aren't going to turn them in.
Well, I hope they don't because, pheasant hunting's always good and this and that. And, you won't be able to do any of those things anymore. And you know where I'm going. And but I certainly hope that at some point the line is drawn in the sand. I hope it's drawn in the sand again and people will vote for Governor Gary Johnson, the Libertarian. I guarantee you he's not going to take your guns away.
Well said. The new book available, InfoWarsShop.com. Gov, you're going to join us again in September. Say hi to the family. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Alex, and keep up the great work, and hi to all the listeners, and hi to my buddy Willie down there in Austin.
Willie Nelson.
All right. Thanks, Alex. Bye-bye.
Bye, Governor. There he goes. We'll be back with Billy Corrigan. Visit InfoWars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.